Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. This is Harika. So in today's video, what we are going to see is a small basic VB app, but it is more towards how we set up a connection with data service. So we have seen a lot of videos on VB apps already on my channel, but if at all you're creating a rule in order to create an entity or record inside your entity that you have in the data service, then you have to know there are some of the prerequisites or some of the settings that you have to do in your data service for that particular entity. So only then this is going to work. Otherwise, it will throw an error that this particular thing is not going to work. So how we will actually do it and what are the permissions and everything that I'm going to show you on this particular video. So for that, I will quickly show you the positive scenario. So firstly, this is a public app which I have published already. And you can see here, this is public, right? And I'm going to submit this form, which will create a record in that particular entity. So I'm going to show you that shortly. And also this is my entity, feedback entity. So if you see here, right now I don't have any data. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to add the information in the form and I'm in the particular app, and I'm going to submit it. So I gave my name and the feedback. I wanted to learn more on UiPath VB apps. Okay, this is the feedback, and click on the button which will help you to submit. So this message shows that your feedback is invaluable and it is saying that it's thank you. So that means it's a successful scenario. So let's go back and see. I'm going to refresh this. So we can able to see the data, right? That I have submitted there, correct? So this is a positive scenario. That means I have established all the possible permissions. I've made all the possible permissions and also all the necessary permissions that the particular app needed excuse me, in order to add the records in a particular entity. I have done everything in the background. So that's why we could able to see this. So now in this video, I'm going to demonstrate everything right from the scratch. So how you can create this, how you can establish the connection. Before to that, if you don't have these permissions already, how you will get the error, what error you will get and how you can resolve it. So all these things I'm going to cover up in this video. So let's get started and see how we can get this done. So for that, I'm going to create an app first. So this is a basic app which you already know, but just for keeping it simple and to make it right from the scratch, I'm going to demonstrate it now. So I'm going to give a app name as demo data service feedback app, something like this, or data service feedback app or something like that. And also I want this to be a public app. So create it. So I'm going to keep it very simple. I'm just going to add only 2-3 controls, and later I'm going to create one rule. So for this, I'm going to add a control like a text box. Okay. One text box with name. Okay. Save. And another control which is text area for feedback. Okay. Just change the label to feedback. And then one button to submit. So just click, change the button to submit and save. So these are only the 3 controls that I'm going to add here. And the most important thing, what happens is the rule. Once after I click on the submit, I want it to create a record in the entity. So for that, you have to make sure, let me, sorry. So let me duplicate this to get into the data service. So first you need to have the entity created as per whatever the data that you are pushing into your data service entity. So for that, I am going to go to data service. It's still loading. Okay. So I'm going into data service, and here in the data service, I am going to, here we have the data already, right? I mean the fields. So if at all you have more fields, what you can do, you can just create a new field, like, email ID, something like that. You can just create, and you have to ensure if it's required or not, if it's a mandatory field or not. Just if it's not needed, then that's fine. Okay. So if you go over the data, you will see this is not mandatory, so it will be blank. That's fine. But if it's a mandatory field, just remember that you cannot submit the app if that particular field is not provided by the user. So you have to ensure that whatever the field is mandatory and which is not, you have to ensure that it's provided while creating the field. So that is about entity. This is how you can create the entity. And now the thing is, by using app, you wanted to create a record in this particular entity, right? So for that, what I'm going to do, and also I will create a new entity also here. Data service feedback entity. Okay. I'll quickly data service feedback entity, and I'll create a field called name, and I want it as a, I'll keep it as a required field, and also feedback. Okay, save both of them. So now what happens is I have both of them. And the next step is, now once after my user adds this particular records and click on submit, I want this to add both of them into these two particular records or these two particular fields. So how I can do that? Before I do that, I have to add that particular entity to my app. So for that, in the add control, just click on entity and select the tenant. Here you have all the entities that you have in that particular tenant. So this is the entity that I've just created. Data service feedback entity. Click here, select it and add. Simple. First, you have to add that particular entity into your app. Okay, so once it's there, you can see the entities that are added to this particular app on the left-hand panel. So this is the data service feedback entity. Done. Till here it's clear, right? So now again we'll go back, and the main rule that we are going to create is once after I click on submit, I want name and the feedback going into the fields of name and feedback of my entity. Correct? So for that, I'm clicking on submit. In the events, clicked on create rule. Okay. So once after I click on that, what should happen? It should create the entity record. So which entity record be created? Data service feedback entity. Just select it, and values to be set for these two fields. These two fields are from here, name and the feedback. So what information should go into the feedback? Whatever you have typed in the this feedback. So you can just rename this as well. If it's confusing for you, you can just rename this text area to feedback as well. And this also you can just rename to name. So it will be easy for you to understand what information you are passing. Okay. Okay. So now feedback. So where is the feedback? So this is how we will dynamically pass the values in the VB apps, right? Main page dot feedback dot value. Whatever the value that the user enters in the feedback field will go into the feedback of the entity record. Save it in the same way. Main page dot name dot value. Perfect. So I think till here it's clear. And once after this is done, so when created, we will, that means if it's a successful, we wanted to show a message. What message you wanted to show? Success, successful submission. Okay, successful submission, and thank you for your feedback. Okay, this means that your feedback has been successfully submitted. So just increase this to 10 seconds. If let's say there's some error, so what is the message that I wanted to show? I'll just show some error message. Error. So what is the message that I wanted to show? Unable to submit. Please contact your app admin. Maybe some issue might be there, so you reach out to your admin. Okay, so that's the message that I wanted to show if it is not able to submit successfully. Perfect. So this is how you can create it. And now the main thing is, as I've already shown in the previous video, how you can deploy this and make this as a public app. I've already explained very clearly in one of the previous videos. So if you haven't watched that, for clear demonstration, I would recommend you to watch that video. I'll also link that particular videos in this particular description as well. You can just check it out there. But quickly, I'll just publish this app and I'll show you how we can get this into, how we can make this app public. Okay, so I'll click on publish. Okay, so it will take some time to publish. So once it's done, okay, deploy. We should deploy the app. Okay, it will take us to that particular tenants page where we want to deploy it. So I'm not talking too much detail about this deploying and what we are doing and all, because we have already discussed about this in the previous video. So in the apps, what I'm going to do, so here if you see, I'm going to click on deploy app, and then I'm going to take this particular app, which is data service feedback app. Okay. And then next, deploy. Okay, and this is the URL. Just copy the URL. Let's close. So now, as the app is public, we can see this app even in the incognito window. Okay, just okay. Because this app is public, it is available for everyone. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to submit. I'm going to try to submit the feedback. So I'm going to give my feedback. Okay, so just click on submit. So if you observe, this is a error message. You don't have permission to access the entity, field, or record you're trying to use. It is it's an unsupported robot type. And the other message which was sent by us, which was customized by us, is this one, right? Error, unable to submit. Please contact your app admin. So what happened is, if you see here clearly, you don't have permission to access the entity, field, or record, right? So that means we initially have to give some permissions in order to access the entity, because we are trying to create a record in the entity, right? So how we can get that done? So let's try to see how we can make it possible. So for that, go to data service, and in the data service, wherever your entity. So we are referring to this particular entity, right? Data service feedback entity. And what is the requirement that we are doing here? Creating the record in the entity. So for that, let's go here in the more options, manage access. Okay. So if you see here, in everyone, we have app user. So this is the role that I have created. So let's edit it a bit, or else what I can do, I'll just show you the roles first. So we have different types of roles here, like, standard roles, customized roles, like that. We cannot change the standard roles. So if you see here, these are the standard roles. We don't have any permission to change the standard roles, but customized roles, we can change them. So if you see here, app user, just edit it. So you can see the app user have the permission to view the schema, to view the entities, and also to create and read. But this permission was given only to the feedback entity, right? But what I want is I'll add my entity. So let's say if you don't have this role already, you don't get this. But let's say if I have to create a new role, I'll tell you how you can do it. Okay, just give some role and you have to select at least one from the administrative permissions. I'll just take view schema, and here, so whatever the access, data access permissions that you want to give. For example, if you want to create a record in the entity, or if you wanted to read something from the entity, so let's say you wanted to fetch the data from the entity, or if you wanted to edit the data, or if you want to delete the data. So in that case, what you should do, you should have all of these accesses, right? So for that, you should give the particular entity which you are referring to. So in my case, I am referring to data service feedback entity. So I'm clicking that. And what all I wanted to do, I'll read and then I'll create. So these two things, I actually wanted to create, but it's fine. Read is a default one, right? So I'm giving create and read. Click on save. Done. So now this role I should assign to everyone in the group of everyone. So app user demo role. Done. Perfect. So now this role has been assigned. And now I am going to use this particular app, copy URL, and let's go to here. Now let's try to create a record in the entity by submitting it in the UiPath app. I like your videos on UiPath BB apps. Okay. Submit. See, successful submission. Thank you for your feedback. And now this should able to create the records in the entity. So let's go to here, data. I like your videos on the with VB apps. Perfect. So this is how you can actually create the records in the entity by enabling the permissions at the data service level, entity level. You can just do that. So the roles that I've created and everything, I've taken the reference from the UiPath official documentation page. So I'll give you the link for that particular documentation also in the description. You can just check out if you wanted to do any other manipulations, like how you can do a deletion, how you can do a editing and all that, that also you can do, just like how I have shown you for the customized type of roles. In the similar way, you can also create that. So that's all in this video. I hope you found this video useful. If so, please do like and share across your friends who are working on the UiPath VB apps, and also subscribe to my channel for more such informative content.